Good evening and welcome to Writers on Writing. I'm your host, Dr. Brenda Greene, and Writers on Writing comes to you every Sunday and gives you an opportunity to hear writers from the African diaspora talk about their work, their craft, and their lives. And you also can watch us on our YouTube station, which is located at the Center for Black Literature, www.centerforblackLiterature.org. I am the founder and executive director of the Center for Black Literature and director of the National Black Writers Conference. So again, greetings and we welcome you. And I'm very, very pleased to have with me today, Michael Greene. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Dr. Greene. It is my pleasure and a joy to be with you this evening.
Okay. So just some background about Michael. He is an actor, a producer, a director, a performer. He has received critical praise for his ongoing portrayal of Dr. King in Jeff Stetson's The Meeting at the Schomburg Center for Black Literature, and also across the tri-state areas. His credits include Esther Alma's Savior, Blues for an Alabama Sky, a Guest at Central Park West, A Lesson Before Dying, Blue Train, Captain Logan, The Blacks. It just goes on and on. And for 12 years, Michael was the resident drama instructor for the Artists Collective in Hartford, Connecticut. And since 2004, 20 years, he has been a teaching artist and event director for the Center for Black Literature's Re-envisioning Our Lives Through Literature. More recently, Michael also has been involved in some writing projects, and of course, he works with many institutions, cultural and literary institutions across the area. So he has a wide background. So I'd like to begin by asking you to share with us your journey into the realm of acting and performing, directing and producing. What was
Well,
what led you there?
wow. I have to say that my foundation was started in grade school. I had a English teacher that took an interest in me. I was actually sent to the principal's office. I don't know what for. I was such a good kid, but instead of punishing me, she said, "No, let's not punish this kid. Let's put him in drama."
Okay.
And so, and lo and behold, it was like throwing a fish into water, because I took to it and it took to me and it stuck. So from there, that foundation way back when would follow me throughout high school. I went to a performing arts high school in Houston, Texas, and I graduated there after performing several plays, wrote my first play in high school.
Oh,
And right out of graduation, I got my first major tour in a play that was produced by Esther Rolle. And that took me to the West Coast, where I was actually born. So that's another part of the story. Born in Los Angeles, relocated to Houston, Texas. And so I got my taste of Hollywood and the limelight there at that point. But also I came to my real purpose, which was in community service, which is, I went back to my old neighborhoods and saw how, they were decimated. I saw friends I went to school with on drugs. And that sort of, did something else. I wanted to try to use my talent to make a difference. And I started writing plays about Dr. King. I remember reading the autobiography of Malcolm X when I was 15. And so these two men were already in my psyche. And so to follow that path, I would go in and out of doing plays in Houston, local commercials. Finally, I landed a gig that brought me to New York in 91
the big
with my first.
apple.
Yes, yes. And just giving you an exegesis on things. But then I landed in New York in 91, fell in love with the city. I was here for 4 months, but I knew I would be back. I would go back and forth until 98 when I finally moved to New York. And there, I helped to produce my first play called Camp Logan. And I did that when I first met Vosa Rivers. He was the first person to put money up for us to produce that show at the Victoria 5 Theater. And that goes back, almost 30 years now that I've known Vosa, and we're still collaborators to this day. So there was sort of a meeting of the minds with my desire to tell our factual stories. I was always an avid reader. I was a very good English student and a history major. And, so I started saying, well, these are the stories that needed to be told. So I started mining our history and finding ways to get these stories onto the page. And, with my, I guess my knack for making things happen, I was able to help get them produced.
So, I'm glad you brought that up because, of course, you work in our Re-envisioning Our Lives Through Literature program, and you look at the plays that you've chosen. Why have you chosen to really focus on the Black experience, and what has that been like for you? And whether it's in working with youth or writing or performing.
I have a great affinity for the history of Black people in this country. And so I love movies, I love films, I love plays. And so going to movies and plays as a source of entertainment, I just felt that there was I always saw a great opportunity. Wow, they can tell this story. Why not this story? Or when they do, mention us or we get a cameo here, I would, figures that I was, that loomed large in my life, like Frederick Douglass. And I say, well, there's never been a definitive movie about Frederick Douglass, one of our greats. They come up with these ideas to create epics around, Tarzan, and if you
Yes.
will. And I said, wow. So you know, if nobody else does it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to make my life about finding these kinds of stories, whether it's Black Wall Street or the story of Emmett Till or the Buffalo Soldiers or in-depth analogies on King and Malcolm. Then I will be the one to try to find these stories. If I don't write them myself, I'll find other writers who were willing and brave enough to write and tell these stories.
So you would buy into that Black writers have a social responsibility.
I think so. I think we just can't afford to just say it's just for entertainment. It's
Okay.
never been just for entertainment. Our legacies are too strong, they're too important. And if we don't find a way to preserve them and make them accessible, make them interesting, then it's on us. I think we're part of the last, you and I and a few others, we're the vanguard. We're the last line of defense to fight for literature, to fight
Mhm.
for books that they can be preserved. Even as we move into this space where everything is going digital, we have got to create a love and a desire to own and cherish books.
Yeah, just following up. So when you look at what's going on in Black theater today, what are your thoughts? What is happening now, and where do you see the future of Black theater?
Well, when I moved here in '98, I thought I would be a part of the new Black Renaissance. That we were
Okay.
definitely in need of a new Renaissance, where with young minds, connecting with older minds, and with a hand on the generations coming forth, would all sort of band together and bring their collective experiences and form sort of a new united front, and that we cherish our history, and then we're going to find a way. If Black theaters are our only medium that we have anywhere we have any kind of real control, we've never gained a real foothold um, in any definitive way in Hollywood. Let's just be real. We're not in enough of the decision making to decide what projects get greenlit. So we can control community theater at the base roots.
Yes.
And so um, it's very, very crucial and important that even if we don't have venues, we find creative spaces to perform. And we've done that. We've taken our plays into schools, into churches, into community centers, wherever someone can, open up a space and turn on a light. We've done our shows there. And people say, "Oh, you're still doing that little theater?" Yeah, I'm still doing that little theater, and I'm going to continue to do it. You know, so the state of Black theater to me, um, well, I can't say I think that there are still, writers who are hungry, who may not be getting greenlit to get their shows on Broadway and some of these other bigger houses, but there are some brave writers out there. We need to galvanize around them to make their work transferable to all the mediums. I mean, there's no way of discounting the reality of this new digital space that we're in. So we must occupy all mediums. We still need live theater. And again, if we don't have, major theater venues, which we don't have, we have just a few. We have Carl Clay's has the Spectrum Theater, the Billie
Yes.
Holiday has their space, and the National Black Theater will have their space again, but that's too far and few between. And a lot of local theater will not have access to those venues as often as we need to. So I think we have to find new ways to identify resources to create not only the venues, but the facility to inspire, to hire, and educate, motivate, agitate, and this new next generation of Black theater. And again, you and I can say Black theater now, but pretty soon we won't be able to say there's people of color theater or something. We won't be able to say Black theater, because it's a whole washing down of our history to minimize it, to render it useless, just a head without arms and legs, just like a statue. That's what the Black experience will be one day. It'll be just a statue you look at.
Right.
And I'm hoping as long as I can breathe that we'll change that.
So what are some of your writing projects? That is really a really heavy statement, a very powerful statement about where are we going. So you're contributing in your way. What are some writing projects that you have? And also share with us some of the projects or the plays that have been most valued that have been highlights for you.
Well, for me, and I've seen a few plays. I can't call them all by name. That I watched recently with some bold new voices that are, breaking through the concrete. So they're out there. And but me personally, one of the subject matters that I've always wanted to really do it in an even bigger way was on Black Wall Street. And now people who hadn't heard about Black Wall Street 10 years ago now think they know the whole story. Now they can say, "Oh yeah, Black Wall Street, heard about it now." When we first did our play in 2012,
You're visionaries.
most people, yeah, they didn't know about it. And so a lot of people to this day, they say, "Man, that's why I first heard about Black Wall Street was at that play." And so, and that was just the beginning of trying to tell the story. That story is so layered, and it has so many tentacles, dealing with the Trail of Tears, the decimation of the Indian populations, which we should really understand the nuance of that and all the things that went on to make that happen. It didn't happen in a weekend. It didn't happen overnight. Systematically, these things were done. And we missed the nuance of how they built Black Wall Street and the other, 100 thriving Black communities, small as they were, but they were all on a trajectory to become bigger and bigger and expand. And most of these the leaders of those communities were visionaries. They wanted to gain more land, to expand. They were going to start. They would have been the first ones to franchise because they couldn't really, do business with white people as such. So they said, "Wow, let's just connect with the Black people around the country." So they were starting to have the first ideas of franchising, and so the powers that be got wind of these types of things. And look, if we don't put a stop to this, do you know what's going to happen to this country? You give them an inch, they will take a mile. They'll take 2 miles.
Yes.
They'll take 10 miles. We can't let that happen. And that's not, that's a reality. That's what's actually happened. So when we carefully look at the resilience of these people who took that nothing and built something from it. They took the little monies that they had, and they had to buy land. They weren't really given a whole lot of land. They had to actually come up with the money to buy the land to settle these places. Now there were some that got some land and they were able to build during and post Reconstruction, yes. But the vast majority of them had to purchase this land and build up and network. And people came from other parts of the country and settled into these places to help build up. That free population that was there waiting for slavery to end, they were the front line because they were always waiting for this opportunity to reconnect with their lost brothers and sisters that were still enslaved. And then they got together, reunited their families, and they just started to build. And it was an amazing thing. And no one has really, really chronicled the success of those stories. So that's one thing. And Black Wall Street is at the helm, but there are others. There's Hayti in Durham, North Carolina. There's Mounds Bayou in Mississippi. There's Nicodemus, Kansas. There's Allensworth in California. So many of these Black towns that were very successful, but they were all undermined and slowly destroyed in a myriad of ways.
Okay.
So
We
yeah.
can
So the
zero
other
in
side of
on you,
all
yeah,
this, yes,
on what you've done, your writing. So Black Wall Street was one. So
Black Wall
and
Street. Yes,
one of the ones that really touched me was Captain Logan. I
Camp
didn't know
Logan
that
is,
story.
yes, absolutely. That's a show. I fell in love with that show, and that tells a poignant story of the Buffalo Soldiers, the ones that were fighting in World War One. Um, before they had a chance to really go out to fight across the ocean, they had to fight here at home. And some of them met their fate in Houston, Texas, in 1917. They just got into it with these local townspeople and decided that they weren't going to take it anymore. So a very, very special play was crafted to tell that story. And it's a story that Boza and I have produced many, many times and traveled around the country with that particular show. So Camp Logan remains, in my heart because I really feel, for those men, it was the worst racial violence prior to 1919 in this country. It is one of the only situations where there were more white casualties than Black. So it just goes to show when the odds are even, they had to watch out. So that's why whenever they came in mass to decimate a town, if the town had 1,000 people, they're coming with 10,000.
Yeah,
And they came with 10,000 because they all wanted to try to go home and have dinner with their wives. So the best way to ensure that is to have superior numbers.
right. And of course, your classic is The Meeting.
The Meeting by Jeff Stetson, a brilliant play. This play was written in 1984 and by Jeff Stetson. And oddly enough, he's a college professor in Los Angeles. And the play was a result of his ongoing discussions on race relations. And, in the 80s, Malcolm and Martin both loomed large, in terms of you were either on the side of Malcolm or you were a Martinite. You just had to
Yes,
like draw
yes,
the lines.
yes,
And so this play supposes a meeting that really, you know, uh, juxtaposes both of their positions. And he captures it in a very humanistic way that's both appealing to young and old. This play, I tell you, it's always being performed all over the country, all over the world. So Jeff Stetson really wrote a dynamic play, and we're glad to still be able to produce it. Matter of fact, we just had one show in Brooklyn at 275 Park Avenue, a new venue in Brooklyn, nice venue, and then we're going to be at Queens Library, Langston Hughes, in a couple of weeks. We'll
okay.
be there for 7 shows,
So when you
and then we'll be in
look
Bronx.
at
Mhm.
all of the you've had your hand in writing and producing and directing, is there any area that you are more drawn to?
Well, I seem to, and I might be finally putting a close on my affair with Dr. King to some degree. I've written a play called 39 Steps Toward Freedom, and it deals with Dr. King's last year. I mean, we're so easy to accept the "I have a dream" king, and we ignore the very, very radical king,
Yes,
the
yes,
king who was coming to understand that what, I am for nonviolence, but I think that I have integrated into a burning
yes,
building, a burning house. That's very profound because while it's one thing to be working in the basement and the fires, raging, in the attic or vice versa. I mean, you can't ignore that. So no matter what your efforts are, if you don't deal with that fire, it's going to all burn. It's going to all be for naught. And so America has never really dealt with these burning fires that they're not going to go away on their own, you know. So I applaud King for his bold stand. He was able to not let his religion get in the way, of the fact that what needed to be done. There were some people saying, look, King, just pray about it. No, I'm not going to pray about it. We're going to do everything else. We might pray, but that's not all we're going to do. And so King was very much a preacher, but very much a fighter, very much a revolutionary and a visionary. So the idea that he and Malcolm could come together on some equal playing field, you know, we can only imagine what could have been. So the play the meeting supposes what could have happened had these two men had a chance to get together and hash out their differences. So that's always going to be a favorite of mine. But this other piece, 39 Steps Toward Freedom, it starts to focus on where King's head was at toward the end, and some of the things that were happening around him towards the end of his life. And even will not get in too deep into the conspiracies, but it's going to uncover some things that that's quite plausible, and it gives us something to really think about.
Right. We really need to have that other story and that other perspective, which leads me to the question about share the kind of work that you've been doing with us in re-envisioning our lives through literature, and your thoughts on how do you really get young people involved.
Well, and to you, I have to just say hats off to you, Dr. Green. I know it has not been easy to keep this program going all of these years, but you're just like me. We're kindred spirits in that. So look, I believe in this. This is my heart and soul. This is what gives my life meaning, and it's not going anywhere. As long as I breathe, there's going to be a role program, and that's kind of like where we are. And so every year, and to think that I can go back 20 years and say, wow, we have helped and influenced so many young people that if we were able to maybe put out some kind of notice, say, look, all of the people that have come through the role program, come out and join us. Let's hear what you've been doing and what's going on. I know that we've touched on our lives. I know that we were the first ones to give them the opportunity and the idea that they could be writers. That I can't do this. I can't think that they can't be critical thinkers and think outside the box and think creatively and marry the two. So I know we've done that. We've seen the results of it each year at the closing programs. I can't stress how important a program like this here should never be in question of whether or not it should be funded. It should be overfunded. We should have so much funds that we have to give some of it back because we've got too
I
much.
love
But of
it.
course, that'll never happen. But again, when you think about where certain monies are being spent, on one hand, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you're a country that cares about its young people, that cares about the future, and then ignores the importance of literature and arts and literature in the schools or after school or whenever. You just can't do that. That's a contradiction that just doesn't work. So your program is very vital. It's vital to me because as I teach, I learn. These kids challenge me, and I get their thoughts and where they are, and I juxtapose where they are as to where I was when I was their age. I wish I was in a role program coming up. you know um so yeah, the program must live and breathe and continue to embrace new generations. We have a new generation of younger teaching artists joining us this year. I'm looking forward to working with them. They're not much older than the students we're teaching, and that's great because that's how this
Right.
chain link has to work. And so it's brilliant. It should be replicated all across the country. You've done it. You've set the template for it. You've surrounded yourself with people that are resilient, who and when one falls, no, they don't stop the show.
No,
We've had some people to fall off and go in different directions, but it keeps. We've got a captain that says we're going to continue on.
that's right.
We
Well,
bring in new
thank you.
soldiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do. We get new soldiers and whatever, and we keep on going. So, but the program is very good. It's a great way to integrate students where they are. We've chosen literature written by young people often, and so they can identify with a lot of the characters. Whether it's Octavia Butler or some of the younger writers over the years we've had. Some of the anthologies were just on point. So we're constantly finding ways to meet them where they're at, to take their music and fold it into the program.
Right.
And this is where and I often tell these young people that if leaders are not born, then where do they come from?
Right. This is one of the things I think that I have learned over the years, that you really cannot separate the arts. You talked about the Renaissance, and you look at what happened during the Black arts movement, during the Renaissance, where you had musicians and artists and performers and writers coming together. And that was really epitomized in the Black arts movement. I think that really set the tone. And of course, it continued through the hip hop generation. And so now you have programs that naturally are bringing those all together. you can't say that you're only an actor or only a writer. Everyone is working in all genres, and there are intersections there. So what do you say to the young person now? What message do you have for young people who want to go into theater or into the performing arts, or who want to be writers?
Well, it's like it's never too early to it's never too early or too late to discover your passion. Um, if you don't know what you want to do, want to be, uh, one way to um, begin to massage those creative juices is to pick up a book and take a journey. Books can take you anywhere, all over the world, far beyond your front porch, your job, your school. Books can do that. Trying to find yourself, go searching, start reading.
Right.
Okay. Um, the brain is a magnificent tool. Feed it. Not only are you need to eat healthy and get fluids and all that, but you need to feed your mind ideas. The words of people who've lived even 100 years ago have something to share with you, have something to say. You'll never be able to walk in their shoes, but those that have written it down and written those stories, you can get an idea what it's like to be there.
Right. That's an
So
excellent.
to inspire yourself, I say read. If you put down the gadgets,
Yes.
I know it's fun. Do yourself a favor. Put it down and just get a book, go in a corner, turn on a little light and start reading. Develop the passion. It'll happen just like it happened to me. It started with me with comic books. I didn't have all the other distractions, but I got into the world of comic books, and then I ventured off into the world of books that didn't have pictures. And wow, and I saw even more because you can't compete with the imagination.
Right.
So yeah, that's one thing. So, and if you're committed to being on the internet, just find a subject that maybe you have a mild interest in and see just how much information is available even on the internet, you
Right.
know. So there's a way to explore to enhance your critical thinking just by exposing yourself to other like-minded individuals.
Well, that's a really wonderful way to bring this to a close. And I'd like you, as we bring it to a close, to share with the audience who are the readers or the writers in your life. I always think of writers as entering into a conversation with others. So who are some of the writers who've influenced you? And if you'd like to share, what are you reading now?
What I am reading now, I'm actually reading I just acquired all of the papers on Dr. King, all of his writings, in a 3-volume compilation. And as I close out my, affinity with King before I publish this play, I wanted to go back in, take one more deep dive into some of his actual words, throughout his life. And so I read, King. I read Walter Mosley. I read Octavia Butler. I read let's see, who's the other author. Most recently, I had to reread the autobiography of Frederick Douglass because he is someone that who deserves his story to be told in a much more visceral way. I've had to revisit some of the writings by Toni Morrison. She's always deep. You have to almost read Toni Morrison, once or twice to really
Yeah,
get everything. You don't get it
yeah,
in one sitting.
not at
And
all.
so that, and I do a lot of compilation research, on the internet, bits and pieces on various authors and so forth. So I'm always researching. Someone just commissioned me to write a play about the Black press, and as I delve into that, I'll be probably interviewing you, Dr. Greene, because you are a part of that as well. Because you not only the Center for Black Literature, you are a hub for writers across all of the genres, journalism to playwriting to all of them sort of intersect with what you do. And so and I feel like that that has been a subject that has been so ignored. The Black press through the years, from Ida B. Wells, from the North Star, there's another. I'm trying to think of the other these old newspapers, the Free Speech, the North Star, the Crisis.
Yes.
Some of these Freedom Ways, all of these old titles of people that did not have access to major media, but they put out their sources on a regular basis, and they had subscriptions, if you will, and wide readerships. And yet we don't really have the same type of national impact that
Right.
they had then, and we have so much more.
Well, I thank you, Michael, for doing the work you do, for being committed to the struggle of making sure that our young people know their history and that our public knows the history of Blacks in this country. And just let the audience know how they can reach you and find out more about what you're doing.
Okay. I'm not sure when they're going to actually hear this, but if they get it soon, February 24th, we're going to be at the Riverbank. Let me get it. It's the Denny Farrell Riverbank State Park in Harlem at 145th Street and Riverside Drive. And we're going to be doing the meeting by Jeff Stetson. It's free, and we'd like to see you there. You can reach me at shadesoftruththeater.com. Shades, SHADES, of Truth, Theater, THEATRE.com, or at gmail.com. You can also reach us at 646-488-9576. 646-488-9576.
Thank you so much, Michael. You've been listening to Michael Greene, actor, producer, writer, and performance artist. This is Writers on Writing. I'm your host, Dr. Greene. This radio show is paid for by Medgar Evers College. Remember, the writer is always reading. The reader is always writing. Keep reading and writing. Empower yourselves as readers and writers. And write us at info@centerforblackLiterature.org. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.